The morning sun poured through the curtains of John and Mary's small but cozy home in Oak Ridge community. Birds chirped, sprinklers whispered across the lawns, and everything looked perfect, at least on the surface. John stepped outside to grab the morning newspaper, humming as he went down the porch steps. That's when he noticed it, an envelope taped to the front door. The paper was stiff, the kind that didn't carry good news. His stomach tightened before he even opened it. In bold black letters across the top, it read, "Notice of violation, pet rules enforcement." John's eyebrows shot up. He ripped it open, his hands trembling slightly. Inside, the message was short but devastating. "You are hereby fined $500 for violating community bylaws. Pets, including dogs, are strictly prohibited within Oak Ridge. Failure to remove the animal will result in escalating penalties." John froze on the porch. The letter felt heavier than paper. It was a hammer, already swinging down on him. He glanced back through the window into the living room, where a tiny golden retriever puppy was wagging its tail and gnawing on one of his old sneakers. Just last night, he had brought the puppy home as a surprise for Mary. She had been longing for companionship while John worked long hours. It was supposed to be a gift of love, something to bring joy into their quiet days. But now it was trouble. Mary came out, wiping her hands on a dish towel. "What's that?" John handed her the letter silently. As she read it, her face paled. "Oh no, John. The HOA already knows." John ran his hand through his hair. "How could they? I just brought him home yesterday." The puppy barked cheerfully, unaware of the storm it had caused. Mary shook her head. "I told you pets aren't allowed here. Everyone knows that rule." John's voice grew firm. "Rules are one thing, but this? A $500 fine for a puppy? That's insane." Mary bit her lip, torn between her love for the little dog and her fear of the HOA. She remembered the stories. Neighbors fined for having the wrong color curtains, families threatened with liens over grass length. And now it was their turn. John stepped inside, crumpling the letter in his fist. "They think I'll just hand him over? Not a chance." He sat on the couch beside the puppy, who immediately climbed into his lap, licking his face. For a moment, the world softened. The puppy's warmth and innocence were a reminder of why John had done this in the first place. But that peace didn't last long. Mary's voice broke the silence. "John, what if they don't stop here? What if they make life miserable for us? We've lived here 10 years. I don't want to lose everything over this." John didn't answer. Deep down, he knew she was right. The HOA had power, and they weren't afraid to use it. John turned to the camera, his eyes filled with frustration. "Can you believe this? A $500 fine. Just because of a puppy. What would you do if this happened to you? Let me know in the comments below. And hey, if you think this fight is worth it, make sure you hit that like button. It helps more people see just how far HOAs can go." Back in the living room, Mary paced nervously. "Do you think maybe we can talk to them? Explain it's just temporary." John shook his head. "You don't reason with people like Thompson." Mary frowned. "Thompson?" "Yes, Mr. Thompson, the HOA president. He's the one behind all this. You know how he is. Always patrolling, always watching." Mary remembered. Everyone in Oak Ridge did. A tall man in his late 60s, always dressed in dark suits as though he were running a courtroom instead of a neighborhood. He had fined a couple down the street $200 because their trash cans were visible for an extra hour. Another family had been forced to repaint their entire house because the shade of beige wasn't approved. Thompson thrived on rules and he never lost. Mary looked at the puppy, who was now curled up and asleep, blissfully unaware of the chaos around him. Her heart softened, but her voice was trembling. "I love him, John, but I don't want a war." John's jaw set hard. He stared down at the letter again, his knuckles white. War may be exactly what we're getting. That night, as the couple tried to sleep, John lay awake, staring at the ceiling. He couldn't shake the feeling that this letter was just the beginning. The HOA wasn't going to back down, and neither was he. But in the darkness, with the puppy breathing softly at the foot of their bed, John made a quiet promise. He wasn't going to let anyone take this dog away from them, even if it meant taking on the HOA itself. The morning after the violation notice, John decided to walk the puppy around the block. He clipped on a small blue leash and stepped outside, determined to show that he wasn't afraid. The sun was warm, the lawns freshly trimmed, and for a brief moment, it felt like any other day. But it wasn't. Halfway down the street, John spotted Mrs. Green. She was a widow in her late 70s, known for her sharp eyes and even sharper tongue. She stood at her garden fence, pruning roses with deliberate care. The moment she saw the puppy, her mouth curved into a thin, disapproving line. "Well, well," she said, her voice carrying more venom than the thorns on her roses. "So the rumors were true." John stiffened. "Good morning, Mrs. Green." She ignored the pleasantry. "You know the rules, John. No pets. Ever. What makes you think you're so special?" The puppy wagged its tail and tried to sniff her shoes, but she recoiled as though it were a snake. "Keep that beast away from me. Do you want fleas crawling all over this neighborhood?" John clenched his jaw. "He's just a puppy. He wouldn't hurt anyone." Mrs. Green narrowed her eyes. "I've already informed Mr. Thompson. You'll see. He'll take care of this nonsense." Her words hung in the air like a storm cloud. When John returned home, Mary was waiting by the kitchen window, wringing her hands. "What happened?" John dropped the leash on the table. Mrs. Green saw him. "She said she's already spoken to Thompson." Mary's face fell. "Oh, John. She made it sound like he's building a case against us," John said. "As if we're criminals." Mary leaned against the counter. "He doesn't need a reason. You know how Thompson is. He lives for this." Later that afternoon, John and Mary sat in their backyard, sipping iced tea, trying to calm their nerves. The neighborhood looked peaceful, with children riding bikes and sprinklers spraying arcs of water across the lawns. Yet beneath the quiet surface, John could feel the tension building. Mary broke the silence. "Do you remember when the Hendersons painted their door red? Thompson fined them $300 because he said the shade was too bright. They almost sold their house because of it." John nodded grimly. "And don't forget the Martins. They parked their RV in the driveway for one night. Thompson had a tow truck out here by morning." Mary sighed. "It's always been his way or no way." The puppy yawned, curled at Mary's feet, and looked up with trusting eyes. She bent down, stroking his soft fur. "What if they force us to give him up?" she whispered. John's voice hardened. "Then we fight." 2 days later, the HOA sent another letter. This time it wasn't just a fine. It was a summons to appear before the board at their next meeting. The wording was cold and formal. Failure to attend will result in additional penalties and potential legal escalation. Mary stared at the paper as though it were a death sentence. "A meeting? John, what if they humiliate us in front of the whole neighborhood?" John shook his head. "Then they'll hear the truth. This is our home. And this is our dog." The evening before the meeting, John decided to confront Thompson directly. He marched down the street to the HOA office, a small converted garage at the edge of the neighborhood. The lights inside glowed harshly against the twilight. Thompson sat behind a desk, his posture rigid, his black suit crisp as always. His silver hair was slicked back, his glasses perched low on his nose. "Mr. Carter," he said without looking up, "I wondered how long it would take for you to come." John stepped forward. "This has gone too far. It's a dog. A puppy. No one's getting hurt." Thompson finally looked up, his eyes cold and sharp. "Rules are rules, Mr. Carter. The community voted on them. Pets are not permitted. Period." John's fists clenched. "So that's it? No exceptions? No compassion?" Thompson leaned back in his chair, a faint smirk tugging at his lips. "Compassion doesn't keep neighborhoods orderly. Discipline does." The words sent a chill down John's spine. He realized then that this wasn't just about rules. It was about control. Back at home, Mary tried to reassure him. Maybe the board will be fair. Maybe they'll listen. But John wasn't so sure. He could already picture the meeting. The glares, the accusations, the gavel slamming down. Thompson wouldn't rest until the dog was gone. Still, as he looked at the puppy curled up in Mary's lap, John made another silent promise. He would walk into that meeting. He would stand his ground. And no matter what Thompson threw at him, he would not back down. Because this fight wasn't just about a dog anymore. It was about their right to live freely in their own home. The night of the HOA meeting arrived like a storm cloud. The community clubhouse glowed with bright lights, and the parking lot was packed with cars. Neighbors filed in one by one, murmuring quietly, curiosity written all over their faces. Everyone wanted to see the drama unfold. Inside, folding chairs were lined up in rows. At the front sat a long table where the HOA board members waited. At the center, like a judge presiding over a courtroom, was Mr. Thompson. His black suit was spotless, his silver hair neatly combed, his expression unreadable. A gavel lay before him like a weapon. John and Mary entered together, the puppy safely at home with a trusted neighbor. Still, John felt the weight of 100 eyes. People whispered as he passed. "That's him. The one with the dog. I heard they already got fined $500. Mary's grip tightened around John's hand. "We don't have to do this," she whispered. "Yes," John said firmly. "We do." The gavel struck the table. Bang. "Order," Thompson declared. Tonight's agenda concerns a direct violation of Oak Ridge's pet policy. Mr. Carter, would you like to explain yourself before the board? John rose slowly, facing the board and the crowd. His voice was steady, though his heart pounded in his chest. "I brought home a puppy, a golden retriever. He's harmless. He doesn't destroy property, he doesn't disturb the peace. He's a member of my family now, and I don't believe this community has the right to take him away from us." A murmur spread through the crowd. Some nodded in agreement, others shook their heads. Mrs. Green stood up from the audience, her voice sharp as a knife. "That animal is already a nuisance. I saw it digging in my garden. What happens when it bites a child, Are we supposed to wait until someone gets hurt?" John snapped back. "He's a puppy, Mrs. Green. He couldn't hurt a fly." "Enough," Thompson cut in, his voice firm. "The rules are clear. No pets of any kind. We all signed the agreement when we moved in." Mary stood beside John, her voice softer but filled with emotion. "Rules should serve the people, not punish them. Isn't this supposed to be a community? Families need joy, companionship. Sometimes that comes in the form of a pet." Another neighbor, Mr. Jenkins, spoke up from the back row. "She's right. My wife and I always wanted a dog, but we couldn't because of this rule. Maybe it's time we rethink it." The room buzzed louder. Some people clapped. Others booed. Thompson banged the gavel again. Bang! Bang! "Order! This is not a debate. The rules exist for a reason. Pets bring noise, damage, liability. We will not allow exceptions." John's temper finally broke. "Or maybe you won't allow it because it's you who doesn't want pets, Thompson. This isn't about the community. This is about control." A sharp gasp echoed through the room. Thompson's eyes flashed. "Watch your tone, Mr. Carter." But John didn't back down. "No, you watch yours. This is harassment. A $500 fine? Threatening more? Over a puppy? That's not leadership, that's bullying." For a moment silence fell. Everyone stared at Thompson. His face was red, his jaw clenched, but he quickly regained composure. "The board will deliberate," he said coldly. "Until then, the fine stands. If the dog remains on your property after 7 days, the fine will increase to $1,000, and further action will be taken." As John and Mary walked out of the meeting, whispers followed them like shadows. Some neighbors patted John on the back, quietly offering support. Others avoided eye contact, afraid of being seen taking sides. Mary's voice shook as they reached the parking lot. "John, what if they actually do it? What if they take the house?" John clenched his fists. "Then we'll fight. I won't let him win." Behind them, through the clubhouse windows, John saw Thompson speaking privately with Mrs. Green. Their heads were close together, their expressions smug. It sent a chill through him. This wasn't over. Not even close. That night, back home, John sat at the dining table with the violation letters spread before him. He felt the walls closing in, the weight of the HOA pressing down harder than ever. But he also remembered the faces of the neighbors who had quietly supported him. Maybe he wasn't as alone as Thompson wanted him to believe. Still, as the puppy curled up beside him, John whispered into the silence, "This is just the beginning." 3 days after the board meeting, John came home from work, tired and frustrated. The sun was just setting, casting long shadows across Oak Ridge's spotless streets. For a moment, he thought the evening might bring peace. But as he pulled into the driveway, flashing red and blue lights caught his eye. 2 police cars were parked in front of his house. His stomach dropped. Mary stood on the porch, pale as a ghost, clutching the puppy in her arms. Beside her, 2 uniformed officers were talking calmly, but their presence made the entire scene feel like a crime scene. Neighbors peeked through blinds, some standing openly on their lawns, whispering to one another. John slammed his car door and rushed up the path. "What's going on here?" One of the officers turned. "Sir, we received a formal complaint from your HOA regarding an unregistered animal. We're required to check the situation." John stared at him in disbelief. The HOA called the police? Over a puppy? Mary's voice trembled. "They said we could be in violation of health and safety codes." She hugged the puppy closer, as though protecting it from handcuffs. The officers shifted uncomfortably. "Look, we're not here to arrest anyone, but we have to file a report. If the HOA pursues this further, it could become a civil matter." John could feel every eye in the neighborhood on him. His fists clenched, his blood boiling. This is harassment. Pure harassment. The officers gave each other a look that said they agreed but couldn't admit it. "We're just doing our jobs, sir. We suggest you resolve this with your HOA as soon as possible." With that, they left, their patrol cars rolling slowly down the street. But the damage was done. The sight of police at their house had already painted John and Mary as troublemakers in the eyes of half the neighborhood. And standing across the street, arms folded and smirk plastered on his face, was Mr. Thompson. That night, John paced the living room like a caged animal. "Police, Mary. Police. Can you believe this? Over a dog." Mary sat quietly on the couch, stroking the puppy's fur, tears glistening in her eyes. "He's trying to break us, John. He wants us to give up. That's all this is." John stopped, his anger giving way to a sudden thought. Why? Why is he so determined? It's not just about the rules. This is personal. The next morning, John got his answer. On his way to work, John stopped by the neighborhood coffee shop. As he stood in line, an older neighbor, Mr. Ellis, tapped him on the shoulder. "Heard about what happened last night. Sorry you're going through this." John sighed. "Thanks. I just don't understand why Thompson is going so far. He's acting like this puppy is a threat to national security." Mr. Ellis lowered his voice. "You don't know, do you?" "Know what?" "His daughter. She's severely allergic to dogs. Always has been. When she was younger, she ended up in the hospital because of one. Thompson's hated dogs ever since." John froze. The puzzle pieces clicked together in his mind. This wasn't about the HOA. This was about Thompson's grudge. He was using the rules as a weapon for something deeply personal. That evening, John confronted Mary with the news. "It's not just the HOA. It's him. Thompson. He's using the bylaws as his shield. But the real reason is his daughter's allergy. He's got a vendetta against dogs." Mary's eyes widened. "So we're paying the price for his personal issues?" "Exactly," John said. "And if we don't stop him now, he'll keep going. Not just with us, but with anyone who crosses him." Mary looked down at the puppy, who tilted his head as if sensing the tension. "So what do we do?" John's voice hardened. "We expose him. We show the community what this is really about." The next HOA notice arrived the following morning. This time, the fine had doubled to $1,000, and the language was even harsher. Failure to remove the animal will result in legal action, including the possibility of a lien on your property. Mary's hands shook as she read it aloud. John, they're threatening the house now. John took the letter, crumpled it, and threw it into the trash. Then it's time to fight back. Legally, publicly, whatever it takes. He pulled out his phone and began dialing a number he had been saving for emergencies. If Thompson wants a war, then he's got one. I'm calling a lawyer. As night fell, John sat on the porch, watching the darkened windows of Thompson's house across the street. The war lines had been drawn. The HOA had power, but John had something stronger: determination. The puppy lay at his feet, wagging his tail, blissfully unaware of the battle brewing around him. John reached down, scratching behind his ears, and whispered, "Don't worry, buddy. We're not giving up." Because now it wasn't just about a pet violation. It was about standing up to a man who had been ruling Oakridge with fear for far too long. The day of the next HOA meeting arrived with a heaviness in the air. It wasn't just another board gathering. It felt like a showdown. Word had spread quickly about the police visit, the doubled fine, and whispers about Thompson's true motives. Nearly every resident in Oakridge showed up, filling the clubhouse to capacity. John walked in with Mary by his side, a folder of documents tucked under his arm. He wasn't just angry anymore. He was prepared. His eyes swept the room and landed on Thompson, who sat at the head of the board table, expression stern, suit immaculate, gavel resting beneath his fingertips. Mary whispered, "Are you ready for this?" John gave a short nod. More than ready. The meeting began with routine announcements, landscaping schedules, budget updates, but everyone was waiting for the real issue. Finally, Thompson cleared his throat and spoke. "Our next matter is of urgent concern. Mr. Carter has continued to violate community bylaws by keeping a dog on his property. As of today, his fines total $1,000. If he refuses to comply, the board will pursue further legal action, including a lien on his home." A murmur swept through the crowd. Some gasped. Others shook their heads in disbelief. John stood, his folder clutched tightly. "Mr. Thompson, board members, and neighbors, I've listened to your threats long enough. Tonight, you're going to hear my side of the story." He opened the folder, pulling out a stack of papers. "First," he began, "this community's no-pet rule is decades old, outdated. Times have changed. Across the state, courts have ruled against HOAs when their rules violate basic homeowner rights. And I've already spoken to a lawyer who believes we have a strong case." The crowd murmured louder now, people leaning forward in their seats. "Second," John continued, "this isn't just about rules. This is about abuse of power. Mr. Thompson has weaponized the HOA bylaws to serve his personal vendetta. And I know why." Thompson stiffened, his jaw clenched. "Careful, Mr. Carter." "No," John interrupted firmly. "Everyone here deserves the truth. Thompson has hated dogs ever since his daughter had an allergic reaction years ago. That's his right. But it's not his right to impose that bias on an entire neighborhood, hiding behind rules to punish anyone who dares to disagree with him." Gasps rippled through the room. People turned to Thompson, whispering, questioning. His face flushed red, but he tried to regain control. "This is irrelevant. The rule exists and it applies to everyone." But John pressed on. "Then why are you so determined to enforce it more harshly than any other rule? Why call the police? Why double the fine overnight? This isn't about order. This is about you." The room erupted. Several neighbors stood to speak. Mr. Jenkins raised his voice. "He's right. We've wanted pets for years, but we were too afraid of fines." Another woman added, "This community feels more like a prison than a neighborhood. Maybe it's time we make changes." Mary finally stood, her voice trembling but strong. "We're not asking to break the community. We're asking to build it. A dog doesn't destroy families, it strengthens them. Rules should bring us together, not tear us apart." Applause broke out. First a few claps, then dozens. The tide was turning. Thompson slammed the gavel. Bang! Bang! "Order!" This is not a democracy. The rules are in place. But he was cut off by another board member, Mrs. Clark, who leaned into her microphone. Actually, Mr. Thompson, it is a democracy, and I think we should vote. The audience cheered. Thompson's face darkened, but he had lost control. One by one, board members raised their hands. The vote was close, but it passed. The no pet rule would be suspended until the community could formally review and amend it. Cheers filled the room. Neighbors crowded around John and Mary, congratulating them, petting the puppy Mary had carried in her arms as a final statement. For the first time, Oak Ridge felt united, not ruled. As the crowd dispersed, John turned to Thompson. The president's face was tight with rage, but his power had slipped. "This isn't over," Thompson muttered. John looked him straight in the eye. "Maybe not, but neither are we." Later that night, back at home, John sat on the porch with the puppy curled up beside him. The air was cool, the stars bright, and for once, the neighborhood felt quiet. Not tense, not hostile, just quiet. He turned to the camera, speaking directly to his audience. Backhand index pointing right, so tell me, if this happened to you, what would you do? Would you stand and fight the HOA? Or would you give up and pay the fine? Let me know in the comments. And if you believe homeowners should have a voice, share this story. Let's make sure people know how far some HOAs will go. The puppy barked once, as if to add his own opinion, and John laughed softly. For now, at least they had one.